Members of the public gallery should note that Council records and publishes council meetings via YouTube to enhance the accessibility of council meetings to the broader Wellington community. These recordings are also published and archived on Council's website for viewing by the public. Recordings may also be used for publicity or information purposes. Members of the public in attendance at the council meeting who wish to communicate with the council regarding an agenda item or any other matter should advise the mayor, ideally prior to the meeting starting, to ensure that their submission is called at the appropriate time during the meeting. And I'm aware of a number of those in the gallery who are going to be speaking at the end of the meeting in the general further gallery and online comments section at 16. Would gallery visitors, councillors and invited online attendees please ensure that mobile phones and other electronic devices are turned off or in silent mode for the duration of the meeting. Wellington Shire Council acknowledges our office is located on the traditional lands of the Gunai-Kurnai Nation and we pay our respects to their elders past and present. We don't have any councillors online.
No, Mayor.
So I should have asked that first. We have apologies from Councillor Bannerman and Fote. I believe we have a full cast otherwise. Any councillor conflicts of interest? We then move on to the confirmation of the minutes of the previous council meeting. Do we have a motion there? Thank you, Councillor Wells.
I move that Council adopt the minutes and resolutions of the ordinary council meeting of 1st of July 2025.
Thank you. Seconded, Councillor Lowe. Is that motion opposed? Motion not being opposed, it's carried. Did you wish to speak? No. No business arising from previous meetings. Do we have any late or urgent items?
None, Mayor.
Notices of motion? None. Receiving of petitions or joint letters? None. No outstanding petitions. So then we move on to item 8, invited addresses, presentations or acknowledgements. Councillor Madeley, I think you might have something there. Thanks, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. Tonight I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge and reflect on NAIDOC Week 2025, which was celebrated around the Shire and Australia last week. This is an incredibly important time to recognise and celebrate the history, culture and achievements of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. Here in Wellington Shire, we've been proud to see a wide range of events taking place across the region, highlighting both celebration and truth-telling. In Sale, Rummiuck District Aboriginal Corporation hosted a NAIDOC Week celebration, which was attended by the Mayor, and this brought the community together through ceremony, song and story. Yarram also hosted 2 separate events, one held at the Yarram Memorial Park and the other at the Yarram District Health Service. The latter event included a smoking ceremony, traditional dance, flag raising and a community barbecue featuring bush ingredients like kangaroo sausages, emu patties, lemon myrtle tea cake and wattle seed damper. Across the week we also saw local individuals recognised through NAIDOC Week Awards, honouring those making significant contributions to culture, education and reconciliation in our region. At the Gippsland Art Gallery, First Nations artist Dominic White delivered several inspiring workshops as part of NAIDOC Week. One of these, the Stick Theory workshop, offered a deeply philosophical and thought-provoking space for participants. I was lucky enough to attend that one on Saturday. Dominic also ran sessions for children where young people created timber pendants using traditional sinew techniques. A powerful opportunity for cultural learning and hands-on creativity. NAIDOC Week is more than a celebration. It's a reminder of our shared responsibility to acknowledge the past, listen to the stories of First Nations people, and continue working together for a future that is inclusive, respectful, and united. Thank you to all who organised and attended events across the Shire. Your contributions make our community stronger and more connected. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Any other invited addresses, presentations? Councillor Stevens.
Yes, so I'd just like to comment on the unveiling ceremony held on the 5th of July at the Yarram Cenotaph, which was organised by the Yarram District Historical Society and the Yarram RSL, and a plaque was unveiled in memory of the members of the 2nd 22nd Battalion, also known as Lark Force, from obviously from the Second World War. The 2nd 22nd Battalion, I understand, was formed mainly in Gippsland, and the battalion was sent to Rabaul in December 1941 to act as the garrison there. And of course, unfortunately, the Japanese invaded in January 1942, and pretty much the whole of the force was captured. Then a few of the soldiers escaped into the jungle and managed to make their way back to the south coast and got returned to Australia. But yeah, unfortunately, the majority of the battalion and a number of civilian prisoners were embarked on the Japanese ship, the Montevideo Maru, in June 1942. I'll get my years right in a moment. In June 1942, and were shipped off to a new prisoner of war camp, but to great unfortunately, a US submarine sank the Montevideo Maru, and over 1,000 prisoners died as a result. There were 12 Yarram men that were with the 2nd 22nd Battalion. Six of them died on the Montevideo Maru. One was executed. 5 did manage to escape into the jungle and make their way home. And ironically, one of them was killed in a motorcycle accident in Yarram on leave about 12 months later. So it was a wonderful event because a number of the families are still around Yarram district and were in attendance at this event. It was a great event. The plaque is now on permanent display at the Yarram Cenotaph on one of the side walls, and it was a great remembrance of the service and the sacrifice of people that served in the Second World War. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Stevens. Any other acknowledgements, presentations? We then move to item 9, questions on notice. I do not believe we have any. So look then for item 10, the Mayor and Councillors report.
Mayor and Councillors.
Thanks, Councillor Ripper. Thank you, Ripper.
I'd like to move that the Mayor and Councillors report be noted for June 2025.
Seconded, Councillor Wells. Is that motion opposed? Motion not being opposed is carried. Do you wish to speak to that, Councillor Ripper?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to advise that 48 events or meetings were attended to by the Mayor and the Deputy Mayor, along with councillors, over that period of time. And some of these, I'll just pick out 2 or 3. The Wellington Municipal Emergency Management Planning Committee, Councillor Lowe and Councillor Stevens. And also Ashley House have a big freeze event each year to raise funds and for MNMD, and Mayor Rossetti got a little bit wet.
And cold.
And also the TAFE Gippsland Councillor site visit at Port of Sale campus, which is just over the road. Mayor Rossetti, Deputy Mayor Madeley, Councillors Bannerman, Wells and Fote attended, and we also had a visit with Councillor Stevens had a meeting with Vic Grid Public Consultation in Yarram, and Gippsland Climate Change Network Board, Deputy Mayor Madeley attended, and we go down the page a little bit more. Also a bit of a drive going up to Canberra this time. The National General Assembly Conference, Canberra, the Deputy Mayor, Madeley, Councillor Bannerman and Taddison attended, and there's a lot more to read if those who want to read where our councillors, Mayor and Deputy Mayor attended. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ripper, and I must say that Canberra visit, it was highly unusual for people to be able to get access to Minister Bowen, and through personal messaging from the Deputy Mayor, you managed to do that, which was terrific, and to push our case for the assistance during the, especially during all this offshore wind development around our area. We move on to delegates' reports. I have one, unless anyone else has got one first. No, just to mention that yesterday the CEO, myself and Mr Pomeroy met with the Minister for Climate Action, the Minister for Energy and Resources, Lily D'Ambrosio. We were invited to speak following up on the letter that I sent based on the motion at Council about our position of undergrounding the cables, transmission cables from the offshore wind. We had a good hearing. We, at the same time, were able to update the Minister on things like the concerns around sea spray with the visual amenity of the wind farm. So we certainly pressed that heavily with the Minister, the points of view from the sea spray community. We spoke about the undergrounding. I'm not convinced that we're going to have a lot of success there, but we certainly pushed the case and said that at the very least the tie lines along the coastline would be the first priority that I'm sure we would all have. We also spoke about payment in lieu of rates. This is the one renewable energy zone that doesn't have an automatic revenue stream coming through to local government. Now, for us, the challenge is that if there's a whole lot of new requirements for infrastructure for the communities that are being impacted, it either comes from a revenue source like those people with their those wind farms, or it has to come from the ratepayers. We think it's appropriate that we get some sort of rate revenue coming in from the wind farms to be able to then support the work that needs to be done in the communities to support these workers coming into the community, but also the impact on their infrastructure through the Shire as well. That's an ongoing conversation. We're certainly having a conversation both with state government and the federal government to try and work out how that can happen. The challenge we've got is that we don't want to be impacted in the same way that Wonthaggi was during the times of the desalination plant, when a lot of the locals really bore the impact of all these workers coming into town, driving the rents up, pushing those who are most vulnerable out of their housing, and then leaving. And in fact, that's why we've actually got an application into the RPPP. I think there might be too many P's in there. It's a federal fund, which is for
Regional Precincts and Partnerships
Thank
Program. Is correct, Mayor?
Yes, we've got an application in conjunction with South Gippsland Shire and Glowack for $4.7 million to try to do that work, to understand what the requirements are all the way along the coast that's impacted by the offshore wind, to then know how we can make sure that it happens as smoothly as possible. So we're still fingers crossed that we can get to that outcome. And while it's not a state government issue for Minister Ambrosio to deal with, they've been supportive of our application and are keen for us to get some progress there. And finally, we also spoke about the landowners who are impacted by the overhead cabling, which ideally would be underground. The ability perhaps that if they wanted to actually connect into that same grid to do their own renewable, that may indeed be an option. So it's quite a broad conversation with the Minister. We had a good hearing. I think she's certainly very, very happy with the support that our community is giving to the renewable energy zone. And we, as a council, we're very supportive of moving forward with support for those renewable projects. That's my report. It was nice thing about going to Melbourne is seeing it in your rear vision mirror when you're heading home. Now I move then on to the Chief Executive Officer's report, 12.1. Councillor Lowe.
I move that the Chief Executive Officer report be received for the June 2025.
Second to Councillor Wells. Is that motion opposed? Motion not being opposed, it's carried. Councillor Lowe.
No worries. I'll just say a couple of things the CEO has been up to over the last month. On the 5th of June... Yep. Meeting with, on the 5th of June, meeting with John Leslie Foundation, Helene Booth, and meeting with the Gippsland CEOs and Regional Development Victoria regarding grant opportunity. That's a good one. Now, on the 10th of June, the CEO and Councillor Wells catch up. Yep. Mayor Rossetti, Deputy Mayor Madeley and the CEO catch-up, that's a good one. Attended TAFE Gippsland with Councillor site visit, the Port of Sale campus. On the 23rd to 27th of June, National General Assembly Conference in Canberra. 26th June, meeting with Rebecca Duncan, advisor to Minister McBain in Canberra. Yep, awesome, thank you.
Terrific. Thanks. That's Councillor Lowe. We move then on to the Assembly of Councillors report 13.1. Thank you, Councillor Stevens.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, and I apologise. I think I forgot to use my microphone before, but I'll use it this time. So that Council note and receive the attached Assembly of Councillor records for the period 23rd of June to the 6th of July 2025.
Councillor Tatterson beat you by a short hair there. Seconded Councillor Tatterson. Is that motion opposed? The motion not being opposed, it's carried.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Of course, this report on Assembly of Councillors was required under the Local Government Act 1989, but has since been removed from the Local Government Act 2020. But the Council has determined to still report on Assemblies of Council, just so that it's on public record and transparent of what meetings and discussions the Council are having. If I recall correctly, I think it's 3 councillors used to form the minimum. Once you had 3 councillors, you had an assembly and you had to report. But anyway, that's probably by the way now. Anyway, yeah, so this is now on public record. It's usually basically just a record of what the councillors did in workshop sessions. So generally for the information of the general public, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stevens. Moving on to 14.1, Quarterly Strategic Land Use Planning Update Report, second quarter. Councillor Tatterson.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that Council receive the second quarterly update report, April to June 2025, on the Strategic Land Use Planning Work Program, included in Attachment 14.11, Current Strategic Planning Work.
Seconded Councillor Madeley. Is that motion opposed? The motion not being opposed, it's carried. Councillor Tatterson.
Thank you, Mayor. The Strategic Land Use Planning Work Program is regularly reviewed by Council's Strategic Land Use Planning Projects Group, the SLUP group, as we call it, a very hard-working council group, with members Councillor Foat, Councillor Bannerman and myself, as well as a number of key staff. The review group has considered it beneficial to provide council and the community with a quarterly update of the strategic land use programming works. They're all listed there for people to see, but a couple of things that currently underway are the West Sale Industrial Land Development Plan, the draft Stratford Structure Plan and our Renewable Energy Impact and Readiness Study implementation. So they're key projects that our strategic planners have been working on, which will provide clarity for our future.
Thanks, Councillor Tatterson. Moving on to monthly planning decisions for May 2025. Thanks, Councillor Tatterson.
Oh, could I please move? I move that Council note the report on recent planning permit trends and planning application determinations between 1 May and 31 May 2025.
Seconded Councillor Madeley. Is that motion opposed? Motion not being opposed, it's carried. Councillor Tatterson.
The report's available there in the council agenda, and there were 45 decisions have been made by our planning team over the last month, and there's planning decisions from right across our shire. So we can still continue to see good, strong planning growth across our shire. So thanks for the staff for their efforts in ensuring that our planning processes are as easy as possible to deal with. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tatterson. We move then on to 15.1, the Place Names Committee meeting, June minutes. Councillor Madeley.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that Council 1 receive and note the minutes of the Place Names Committee meeting held on 10th of June 2025. 2, approve the proposal to rename a section of George Street, Maffra, noting resident submissions on the proposed renaming that the 5 affected property owners 1, be given the opportunity to vote on a new name with the options of Edward Street or Wriggle Street, with Wriggle being a name taken from the approved names register. And 2, that council officers register the selected name with the highest number of votes with geographic names, Victoria. And 3, that note that council officers will undertake a community engagement exercise with the intention of gathering naming submissions regarding the proposal to name the park and car park associated with the Port of Sale boat ramp off Park Street, Sale. And I will take items 4 and 5 as read. Thank you, Mayor.
Seconded, Councillor Lowe. Is that motion opposed? Motion not being opposed, it's carried.
Great. Thank you, Mayor. Tonight we're considering a number of important updates and decisions from the recent Place Names Committee meeting that was held in June. The first of those is George Street, Maffra, proposed renaming. This has been triggered by a subdivision, and this particular issue has been ongoing, I believe, for over 12 months. So we're hopeful that this will allow the affected residents to have a decision, some input into the renaming of their part of the street. We're also undertaking, and I think this one's very important, that we're undertaking a community engagement process regarding the Port of Sale boat ramp. You'll recall when the Sale Music Festival was held there earlier this year that it didn't have a name. So this is an opportunity. Not sure when exactly the community engagement will open for this, but at some point we will be asking for submissions. Once this has been passed, we will start that process. And we're also moving forward with naming an unnamed road. It's currently labelled Unknown Number 49 off Dargo Street in Sale. So there's 2 affected property owners who will be invited to select a name from the approved names register. And it's fascinating being on the Place Names Committee to learn more about the process behind it, and how names for certain streets or areas are decided upon. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And in fact, at Hayfield, when we had a thank you event this week for the volunteers, we had a random question from someone who had grown up in the area of Cowra, asking how they could recognise some of the people who were contributors in that community early on. And indeed, I said straight up to them to put suggestions in to the Place Names Committee, because the Place Names Committee are always looking for names of significant people in the history of the community, to be able to recognise them through the naming, typically of streets, when those opportunities come up. So anyone in the community who has such names, I think the rulings are that they've got to be deceased first. So we had that conversation when someone wanted to name a particular site after Scotty Pendlebury.
Correct.
And that was not going to happen straight off, because he is very much alive and contributing to the Collingwood Football
That's
Club.
right. That's right.
But I do any opportunity to suggest to the community that they can put those names forward as well.
Yeah, there are a number of rules. Obviously, if there's a similar sounding street name, I think within 5 or 15 kilometres, they have to, yeah, so there is a process, but definitely we welcome all
But either way,
submissions.
the hard-working Place Names Committee can deal with all of those technical issues. All we need are the names. I'm about to invite anyone who wants to speak to come forward to speak on whatever they'd like to speak on. Before I do that, I believe there's a few people who'd like to talk about what's coming up in the Community Local Law Amendment. And what I just suggest to those people who wanted to talk about that, which is about all sorts of things like vaping, cats, gender use in toilets, abandoned vehicles. It's a bit of a whole lot of things in one. But as well as speaking tonight, and you're very, very welcome, please have a look at that local law amendment on Your Wellington, Your Say, and you can just say what you'd like to say in there, and that will be considered as part of the as a submission as part of that process. You've got until 31st of July, Thursday, 31st of July, to get that in. You can go online, but you can also write a letter in to the CEO as a part of a submission to that. It just needs to get here by that same date. But as far as tonight's concerned, if you could state your name, 3 minutes, it'd be great, and just let us know what you're thinking. This is a section where people can come along and talk about anything they'd like to talk about. So you're very welcome to talk about whatever you'd like to talk about tonight. Just work out who wants to be first. I don't know any names, so ideally no elbows pushing each other out of the way, but I'm sure you can all work it out. If you want to come up more than one person at a time too, that's fine, whatever you feel comfortable with. But just as stating your name for the record, about 3 minutes max would be great.
Yeah, g'day, I'm Laurie Park. I've been living around the place for a fair while now, since 1982 or something like that. I just want to talk about the gender mix-up that appears to be going on. Over the last 6 weeks, I've asked every bloke I come across, basically, what do you think of this? And fundamentally, they think it's a load of rot, and that's really nice and calm. You know, letting biological men into the women's toilet and the girls' toilet, wow, that's a bit of a scream for most people. We can't get our head around it. I got a bit of a laugh today. I was down in Traralgon, where this appears to be a little bit further down the road than up here. And at one stage in my travels, I've ventured into a public toilet. Now, the public toilet used to have unisex on the front door. The door was one cubicle, one person, and it said, now it says something like all gender toilet, like there's 57 different genders, you know. Used to be unisex, and we all know that is man and woman. So how much money, I wondered, have they spent changing the name of a toilet door from unisex, with everybody understood, to some new flash sign which says 57, I didn't say 57, it said all genders. Okay, so that was pretty interesting. Bit of a laugh I got out of that. So then I wandered off to the swimming pool. I'll go there with some of the work I do. And in the swimming pool, where there's girls and boys, men and women, the whole lot, there's none of this dysphoria. There's still girls, there's still boys, and you've got the designated toilets and showers, etc. to go into. So, well, that still makes sense. They haven't worked out how to deal with this yet. So, thinking once they work out how they're going to deal with this bit of a fiasco, what's going to happen? Okay, you guys here, you're doing your best job you can, and eventually the government gives you enough pressure that you vote, yeah, we support this idea of letting the biological men into the women's toilet. Okay, so what happens the first time, you know, a biological man going into the women's toilet? I have quite a handful of good friends who are transgender, and they're a bit of a mix-up for one way or other, but they're nice people and they're genuine in their beliefs of how they feel about the world. Some of those people have gone through the surgical process, they've had the penis and the testicles removed, and they're pretty genuine about what they're doing for that sort of commitment. But we also know in society there's a lot of really nasty, evil people out there. And some of them, I'm sorry to say, happen to be men. And that's me, I'm a man, you know. So they're going to take advantage of this law. Ha, great, now we can get into the girls' toilets. We've just got to dress up and say, I'm a woman, I'm going to the girls' toilet. So what's going to happen when one of these nasty people, the predators out there, they come along, they take advantage of this law where you guys, and you're all in good faith, have said, yeah, okay, we'll submit to the government pressure. They come along, someone goes in and rapes, molests a woman or a young girl. Who is then responsible for that? So we've got here the council, under government duress, yeah, we'll vote for it, we'll accept. But someone goes in, someone's perpetrated a crime because they've, planned it, gone out. A woman's been raped, a child's been molested. You guys, I'm sorry, have given permission for that to happen. So who's going to be responsible for that? Where does that stand? I think you really need to stand up to the government and say, no, we're not going to put up with this rubbish. Biological men don't go into the women's toilet, and that should just be the end of it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Park.
Hello, my name's Heidi McIver. I'm from Warwick, and I'd like to speak against the public toilets policy. My personal experience with this was that almost a decade ago, I voiced a very unpopular opinion on the national stage, and as a result, I received threats of sexual violence against myself, my husband and my 2 young boys. There were too many to count. But the ones that stood out to me were those made by members of my own community that were public and described in great detail how I would be sexually assaulted if they saw me in the street. For the next 2 years, I was largely relegated to my home. I found myself constantly scanning my environment if I was out, looking for potential threats and escape routes. I eventually took up martial arts to help break that fear off my life. But these laws bring back a sense of that anxiety. So many women in Wellington have sadly been through far worse than what I have, and I can't imagine what they would be feeling, assuming that they are aware of these changes. I believe many women will respond to these laws by quietly decreasing their use of council facilities, which is a great shame. I know many girls attending schools with these policies who reduce their water consumption and hold on all day, posing a risk to their health in order to reduce a risk to their safety. They just avoid simply going to the bathroom. This is a disgraceful state of affairs that resurrects the infamous urinary leash of the mid-19th century, a phrase describing how England's failure to provide female-only bathrooms limited women's involvement in public life for as long as their bladders would hold, largely relegating them to the home. How can council justify regressing more than 150 years of hard-won women's rights? I'm not suggesting trans people pose any greater threat to women. I'm simply stating what humankind has known for millennia, that men have physiological advantages over women due to genetics, hormones and compositions. This includes a 30 to 40% greater muscle mass, a larger, broader and stronger skeletal structure and enhanced aerobic performance and endurance. These physical advantages don't magically disappear because a man feels like or identifies as a woman. This amendment does give predator men easy access to women's only spaces, no questions asked. If any woman or girl is subjected to voyeurism, sexual harassment, assault, molestation or rape, or exposed to male nudity because of this policy, how would councillors feel knowing you presided over that change? I think if you can't look in the eyes of every woman and little girl in this council area and assure them that there is no increased risk to their safety, you should be brave and courageous and innovative enough to problem solve this and find a solution that does make trans people safe without making women and girls less safe.
Thanks, Heidi.
Be talking about the same thing. My name is Joanne Verrill. I am a clinical social worker in our area. I actually do work with trans kids, so this subject is actually quite deep to me. And the work that I do with these kids is quite sensitive and it is quite complex. I have a huge amount of empathy for adults and young people that are in that space. However, in our area we are seeing an increase in paedophilia behaviour. We are seeing an increase in sexual crimes. Recently, I don't know if you've heard of Joshua Brown. He's the perpetrator, alleged pedophile that's been working at the childcare centres in North Melbourne. A lot of his perpetration has happened via videos. So when I've been researching what is the real problem of this, the problem is it gives cisgender males the ability to pose as transgender women and perpetrate via videos, via recordings. Some of the findings that I have found is that there's been recordings of women going to the toilet, urinating. This goes online. Phones being thrown under the toilets, videoing young children. This is happening in Japan, this is happening in the States where these laws have already gone through. So my concerns are, why are we following in these footsteps if it's already proving to be negligent and creating more harm for our young people and elderly? I'm not going to talk as long as everyone else, but these are my genuine concerns, that there is crime increasing and it is to do with paedophilia. It's not necessarily physical harm, but it is to do with crime online, and we can't actually monitor this. To be able to trace a pedophile doing this takes with Joshua Brown, it's taken 4 years of tracking him to get hard evidence that he has committed a crime. And today alone in the papers, it's 800 other children have been notified to be tested for STIs. So my concern and my plea is our responsibility as community members and your responsibility as councillors is to protect our community and to just consider this with all due respect. Thank you.
Thanks, Joanne.
G'day, my name's Julian McIver. I'm going to talk to the same topic regarding public toilet policy. I'm making a comment tonight as a concerned community member, father and husband to express my opposition to the proposed amendment to the public toilet policy. I firmly believe that women and children have the right to access female-only spaces where they feel safe and secure, free from the presence of the perceived or real threat of biological males. Rather than changing this long-standing safeguard, why can't Council introduce dedicated unisex or gender-neutral facilities? The public toilets near the Clock Tower on Raymond Street in Sale is a common-sense option. So is the toilet block at the Sale Botanic Gardens, which provides fully enclosed single-use cubicles, accessible to all, with shared hand-washing stations. This is inclusive without compromising the safety and dignity of women and children. I respectfully ask that my objection to this amendment be formally noted. Thank you.
Thanks, Julian.
Evening. How are we?
Very well.
Good. First of all, I want to thank you guys.
Oh, sorry, just your name for the record.
Oh, sorry, Corey Siebel. I've never been to one of these before, and it seems tedious, and I just want to thank you guys for the hard work you're doing. To be honest, I appreciate it. I didn't plan to come. I haven't got a speech or anything. I do have a couple of questions though, if that's okay.
It's not a question and answer. You can actually write into council and ask questions.
Sure.
It is all about presenting. So if you've got something you'd like to get off your chest,
I'll present something that I found. My questions are around because I understand that you guys were taking a VCAT over this toilet issue, and I was wondering who did that, and then who was able to defend you guys at VCAT and how that works. So maybe I'll send that through later if that's cool.
Yep.
I was having a look through some of the legal. What's the word? Legislation again, and the 2010. What is it? The 2010. Sorry, I've lost my my train of thought there. The Equal Opportunity Act 2010, and there is a section because I think we want to find solutions rather than just go we don't want this or we want that. So there is section 89. Sorry, now I've just lost where I was. My apologies. Goodness, too much text.
that's all right.
Section 89 basically says that there's a positive duty to eliminate discrimination, which I believe that's what basically why we've attempting to make this change. There is however another section that says that special measures, which basically states that you're able to take special measures. Although we want to eliminate discrimination, but we also need to make sure that people are that we maintain safety for all, particularly for vulnerable groups. And it also basically says that we can actually have single-sex bathrooms if there is a unisex bathroom available. Okay, so in essence, you could have a female-only and a male-only bathroom as long as there is a third option that other people who maybe don't feel comfortable to use either one of those are able to use. And so therefore you can keep those two options as single-sex only. And if there's a third option, which a disabled toilet or a family change room, etc., would actually alleviate that. And I think somebody else mentioned there is obviously other toilet facilities which down the street and at the Little Aths Oval where we've got single cubicle toilets, that eliminates the issue altogether. And so, yeah, I'd submit that that's a great option. I mean, we are redoing the pool facilities, etc. So that maybe, I mean, you're probably a fair way down the line of planning and whatnot, but a few extra walls here and there, I'm sure we could make it work if that's going to keep everyone safe. Thanks heaps for your time. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Corey.
Good evening. My name is Emily Braithwaite. I'm an everyday person in the community, working 2 jobs, recently married to an amazing husband and expecting our first child. When I became aware of this proposed local law amendment to enable biological men to be in women's bathrooms, I knew I had to say something, so thank you for having me here tonight. At the council meeting where this issue was discussed, it was said many times that this is something that we have to do, that it's mandated. And I'd just love some clarification on that. And I'd like to know, is this change something that council will permanently enact, regardless of what the community says about it? Or is this truly open for public discussion? Because if it is open, then council has a duty to listen and act accordingly to the voices of the community. So let me be clear, my heart goes out to those who struggle with their identity, and we should show compassion. I put to you that we can be compassionate without it being at the expense of some of the most vulnerable people in our community, women and girls. As a woman, I'm mortified at the thought of a man entering my changing room or bathroom where I'm supposed to feel safe. It's actually happened to me before. I was in a public female shower room and had just finished having my shower, and I'm so relieved that I decided to dress in the shower cubicle instead of the changing area, because when I stepped into the main changing area, I was actually face to face with a full-grown man. I can't even begin to describe the violation that I felt at that moment. I just remember thinking, all I could think was that I'm so glad I dressed in the cubicle. I'm so glad that I've got clothes on, because I wasn't expecting that. So I just stood there, really shocked, really embarrassed, and honestly really, really sick. So I don't want anyone else to experience what I did. I'm thankful all the time that it happened to me and not a 10-year-old girl who had to be subject to that horrible violation. The sanctity and privacy of women's spaces must be protected and respected. As a mother expecting my first child, I fear a day where our freedom is restricted because I couldn't take my child for even a simple toilet stop for fear of what they might be exposed to. This change, if implemented, will allow males who identify as women to access women's spaces. But if that's the case, are they still truly women's spaces? If council says men who feel they are women and diminish biological women's rights because of it, you're making the assumption that every resident must agree and comply with a theory that is highly contested and completely unscientific. It's also worth noting the background information in the June 17 meeting agenda stated this proposal doesn't even align with any specific strategic goal in the current council plan, and the risks are so much greater than any potential benefit. It risks creating fear, uncertainty, and division in our community, especially among women, girls, and survivors of sexual trauma. Does this really have to be an all-or-nothing decision? Can't we find a compromise that protects everyone's dignity and safety? If there's something about this change that makes you feel uneasy, even a little, please don't ignore it. Let's keep the conversation going. Thank you.
Thanks, Emily, and congratulations.
Hi, I'm Christine. I'm a mother and I live in lovely Stratford with my beautiful family.
I think we do need your last name, Christine.
Agnoletto.
Agnoletto, thank you.
I don't have anything prepared, but I do have serious concerns about this gendered bathroom thing because I have children. I'm trying to teach them the right thing. At the moment, I'm trying to teach my son what is appropriate when toileting, and teaching him the basic things of what a boy is, what a girl is. And if we were to go to the swimming pool and we are faced with a biological man in a woman's area, he's too young to actually grasp that concept. And then it can make it awkward for everyone involved, for the person who's using that room, for me, for my child, then he's confused. You know, there's other circumstances that I worry about. You know, we have a beautiful region where people love to travel. People want to come and live here. What about the Muslim women who do not take off their hijab in front of a man? And if they're changing in a woman's space and a man is there, you know, the emotional, spiritual implications and the trauma that can have on that woman. There's also Jewish women that cover as well, and there's many Christian women who cover and keep modest and don't, you know, they're not allowed to and don't see anyone naked besides women. And to have a man in that change room, you know, just because they identify, and my heart goes out to people who are trans and all that, I'm fine with that. But I think we should be having a third bathroom, like we have for the disabled, to give them privacy, to give them comfort, to give them access. If we have a unisex or a gender-inclusive toilet so that they can feel safe, so that, you know, even trans men can feel safe. Because there's been incidents where trans men have gone into the men's bathroom and been assaulted by heterosexual men. And the same thing has happened with trans women. So my thing is, I want to make it safe for everyone. And I need women to feel safe, because if they don't, they won't start using all these beautiful community facilities that you've spent time, money, resources, you know. People will stop coming to these communities because they're like, well, what's the point? I can't go and get dressed in a change room without the threat of a biological man being in there. You know, my grandmother, she would be mortified if she was getting changed in a change room and there was a man there. And we have to think about vulnerable people, also people who've had sexual assault. It can be very triggering to have been assaulted and get naked and have to change. And while they're working through that trauma, to have a biological man there can put them back. Who's going to help them then? Whereas, you know, they've been traumatised by something that's been imposed by you guys. Are you going to do it? What happens if it's your daughter? What happens if it's your grandmother? What happens if it's someone you care about and their life is destroyed because they've been traumatised or assaulted, and it gets put online or gets shown around the schools, and that's your child or that's your family member that you love and care about is now being exposed, traumatised, all because we want to be inclusive, but we're damaging and limiting women's privacy when we could just have a third option, like we have with the disabled toilet, a gender inclusive, so it fits for the non-binary, it fits for trans men, it fits for trans women. Thank you.
Thanks, Christine. Thank you for everyone for sharing tonight. It's obviously quite a challenging issue. It's certainly challenging around the council table as well. But can I please encourage you to actually put those submissions in? We are putting it out for public consultation because we want to get those views, and the views may indeed mean that the change is made to what the proposed local law is, or it might mean if the local law is actually passed, that there are solutions then in place to be able to find ways to address the issues that you're all bringing up, and indeed that you write in. So please take the time to write something down or type it online at the Your Wellington Your Say and get those in by the end of the month. And certainly if there are others who've got other views, you're having conversations around your groups, it'd be great to be able to get other people putting those in as well. It is going out for consultation because we want to get that feedback. When it comes to council, which should be
Early September.
Early September, we'd have a lot of detail in the motion background itself on what requirements are being placed on us. I'd imagine VCAT orders in any case that we've mentioned would actually be available publicly.
Yes, so Mayor, a couple of the speakers just mentioned, just in relation to, I think Sean may have been one, just where the legal advice came from, just in relation to a local law. When a council changes a local law, and there are many, many aspects within the local law, it must go out to public consultation. In relation to this specific clause that people are raising around the facilities, council has received legal advice because we had a lot of similar questions. Happy to share that, Mayor. So we'll get that information out there so people have got that full information so they can also understand, because it's really important we're transparent on this so people can understand kind of the thought process that councillors are going through as well.
Yeah, it certainly wasn't a thought bubble that came out of the council table. It's directly as a result of that VCAT action. So ultimately, but we will take into account absolutely the submissions, and we look forward to being able to read through those, and hopefully it helps we come to a conclusion that suits the community as best it can. I now look for a motion to move us into closed session. Councillor Stevens.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. My screen just went blank. And I'll put my glasses on and I'll be able to do it. So, yes, so I'd like to move, 1, that the meeting be closed to the public to consider confidential information pursuant to section 66, subsection 2A of the Local Government Act 2020, and defined in section 3, subsection 1, as involving personal information, being information which, if released, would result in an unreasonable disclosure of information about any person or their personal affairs. Point 2, the grounds for designation of the section 3, subsection 1G, part 2, have been made as the information is deemed confidential to protect the personal information. Also move.
Seconded, Councillor Tatterson. Is that motion opposed? Motion not being opposed, it's carried. So we're moving to closed session. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for coming along tonight on a cold, dark night. And please jump onto those computers or typewriters or pens and get those submissions in.
We're going to have to really discuss.
Once we go on speakers,